From the Shadowy Waters by W.B. Yeats and Mr. Lowe's senior page.
There are some that weigh and measure all in these waste seas, they that have all the wisdom that's in life, and all that prophesying images made of dim gold rave out in secret tombs. They have it that the plans of kings and queens are dust on the moth's wing, that nothing matters but laughter and tears, laughter, laughter, and tears, that every man should carry his own soul upon his shoulders.
This is Ralph Lowe. I graduated in 1970. I convinced the faculty, and they allowed me to live in the upper part of the water tower, the round part of the water tower, which I refurbished and put a new roof on. The rooms opened out into the world, much like motels. Kids smoked in bed. It was more or less a sort of Spin and Marty existence where we tried to get through the dust, and nobody paid that much attention to our physical surroundings.
The hero is walking through life normally, in a sort of moral stasis. The hero knows that something's going to happen, but he doesn't know what. It's sort of like sleeping before being awoken. And then all of a sudden, he's jerked onto his journey. He's brought into the journey quickly by the blunder. Now, this can be a talking rabbit, a talking cat, a broken skateboard, as we've said before, but he goes off on his road of trials, which is a series of adventures which threaten to come in and goes out. Now remember, of course, as I said, seniors, remember for tomorrow, this is a story of home, adventure, home, adventure, home, birth, rebirth, death, rebirth. The circle is the operant archetype. The circle which we all sat around as cavemen. Home, adventure, home. Ultimately, at the end of the hero's journey is what Campbell calls the ultimate boon. And the hero at this point is aware, right? Seniors?
Yeah.
The subject of tomorrow's examination is awareness. And he, like Christ, must look down from his crucifix in a sort of moral stupor in pity.
Always do what a talking frog tells you to do. And Peter Lake has the great benefit of these very clear-cut rites of passage. You know, the Baymen kick him out. They put him in a canoe and kick him. Reverend Rudfowl stages his own death. He's out of there. He sees a naked Beverly Penn playing the piano and sweating in a candlelit room. You know, he doesn't ignore that. If all you know is Hamlet, know nothing about Shakespeare, this has been a really bad class. You see? I mean, you've got to know something about Shakespeare, 17th century London, the mentality, the cause, you know, all those things. But if all you know about is Hamlet, this has been a really crappy class. You see what I mean? And if all he knows about is a certain type of machine, it's a really bad education as a mechanic, particularly in mechanics, because
every machine's different.
And
there's a lot of them.
And
she's like talking to the wet nurse about her problems.
Because the wet nurse is her real friend,
yeah.
is her true confidant. Romeo and Juliet,
mm-hmm.
and Juliet has a horrible relationship with her parents. It's almost non-existent.
She gets along with them.
But the nurse, of course, who's a great character, the nurse is the true mother of Juliet. When Juliet needs mothering, she doesn't go near her mother. She goes to the nurse. This princess, Miranda, has been raised in a unique manner by her father, who, as he says, is a careful tutor. Her father's also the greatest magician in the world. She's had a very interesting education. Fortune is a woman.
Is like a god or something.
Yes. The personification, and really the deification of fortune or luck or kismet or fate is a woman.
Oh, it has to come down.
Why?
Because like.
Bountiful fortune. Now, my dear lady, what kind of woman was Fortune when the night he was cast out of Milan on a leaky boat with his infant daughter? Was she bountiful Fortune? Take it apart. It's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's holding scales, which are
justice, judgment.
They're even, and she's blindfolded.
Doesn't judge people.
Okay, so just like the hero, she doesn't judge people by the way they appear. Just like Shakespeare's admonition, don't judge people by what they seem to be, but what they truly are, okay? Edward Albee is a 71-year-old absurdist. And that, to my mind, means he cares about the sorrow that so often festers and then explodes in the lives of men and women beset by fantasies, demands, shortcomings, needs, regrets, and crimes both petty and gravid. He is abundantly aware of how complicated each of us is, and as we are just about to cry, he reminds us to laugh. Anything looked at too closely becomes absurd. Golf, roller coasters, nail polish, lawns and their mowing, neckties. The great absurdists of the latter part of this century, Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Jean Genet, and Edward Albee, deemed the microcosm doleful, wretched, while the macrocosm is comic in nature. Laughter is an act of defiance in the decades that followed Hiroshima and the Holocaust, Watergate, Pol Pot, cell phones, Pamela Anderson, Hootie and the Blowfish, the Chicago Bulls without Michael Jackson, John Jordan. That's an Albee moment. That's exactly. Earthquakes, bus crashes, Kent State. You, after all, have to laugh. Let's all be silent for 1½ minute and defer to the larger things, phenomena, plans, and vistas. That is, after all, what prayers do. We invoke interest in us from powers we agree to be greater than we are. To taste the Pacific, we need only to drink one drop. We can't and we won't roll the universe into a ball. We can only say that we will do our very best to mark those moments which will define the shape of our lives. We use points on a compass, birthdays, funerals, weddings, graduations, to identify the limits of our property, both spiritual and temporal. We are gathered to say goodbye and hello in the self-same breath. These young people to my left, breathless and expectant as they are, remind us of why we work as parents and teachers, farmers, makers of wills and gardens and roads. We are in the business of hope, and we invoke powers we only marginally understand in a mutual endeavor such as this. The Greeks of antiquity, when they wrote their tragedies, their goat songs, their pleas, believed that the gods sat in the theater, in the cheap seats, not as nimby or metaphor, but corporeal beings there for homage paid out like salary. Tragedy was the Greek Mass, the Jewish Seder, the muezzin from the minaret, Vespers. They were always invocations, a call to some awesome consciousness, an ancient endeavor to connect this with that, the real and the imagined, the cold earth with the splendid ether. This is such a call, such a prayer. We mark the end of one life and the beginning of another. We meet to commence and then part. This is ground zero, launch time. From here all things are possible, and we are gathered as if at a wedding to join the past and the future in a now apparently inevitable union. These precious young people can't know the beauty and the peril that waits beyond this place, created as it was to nurture and foster them. We can only, finally, believe in love, the manifest love of caring parents, tired teachers, and unpredictable but finally constant friends. And hope that the gods are in the audience who listen and hear some of the prayers we send them. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated.
Prayers are fragile things, and so we need to become careful with them. They fly, in America, up. In Greece, everywhere, in the hope that one will stick and hold off the humor of some finicky god. In the East, prayers go inside and everywhere at the same time. Prayers go wherever Homo sapiens have sent them, since they were stick figures on some cave wall before there was a France, or up to the vaulted domes of the Blue Mosque, or the flying buttresses of Notre Dame, or against the pied praying wall, or, for so many, the bell of the New York Stock Exchange, or the phony stars that are the ether of Grand Central Station, that no one sees because the almighty buck, like a cornucopia of carrots, leaves them up, down, or downtown, purring above the train din. The commuters, like all of us scrambling between heaven and earth, are precious and brittle. All the expectant young creatures to my left need all of our prayers and all of our languages to all of our gods. Our orison, our plea, is that they be compassionate, open, tolerant, and brave. That they do no harm, and while they're not doing that, do good. That they realize that civilization is judged by the way it treats its women and children, the dispossessed and disabled and disenfranchised, and not by its warriors, demagogues, and bullies. That they are grateful to the lineage that have allowed them this. Let them acknowledge where all the ladders started, which lavished upon them literacy, nutrition, occasional peace, leisure, and hope. Let this be a plea that they consider the violent, brutish chronicle of our species as something that can be amended, ameliorated, and avoided. Let them take to the streets when offended, and let them be silent when they may offend for reasons only of their own. This is a prayer for the cultivation of honesty, compassion, tolerance, circumspection, and awareness. Be brave, care. Avoid the merely hip and embrace the real. Don't buy what is cool because it quickly turns cold. Don't pander to your friends, take care of them, even if the silly teepee you find yourself in is cramped and, in a word, silly. Pay attention. Look both ways, especially in London, before you cross the street, and regard with deep reverence all who have allowed you, enabled you to walk across this dais this day, beneath this tree which reaches so far up and so far down at the same time. Amen. Please be seated.